Morning Express. Just in case you're joining us, we continue with the discussion centered on the journey that is devolution. How far have the counties come, even as we take a look at the journey 8 years that has been? John Mwaniki still joining me, is a Deputy Governor of Laikipia County, as well as Arthur Odera, who's the former Member of Parliament for Teso North constituency. Gentlemen, thank you for staying with me. Mwaniki, I'd like to begin with you. There has been a lot of discussion centered on the BBI, and one of the proposals being fronted is the increase of county shareable revenue from 15 to 35%. We've had critics front the idea that 15 is a challenge, and you've just gone on record mentioning that it is a challenge for the National Treasury disbursing it on time to the counties. What do you make of the 35, irrespective of the good things that it will bring?
You know, the idea of increasing the allocation to counties from 15 to 35, from a constitutional point of view, is what people don't get. You see, right now, in fact, counties are getting more than 15%, yes. But what we are saying is that that is dependent on what is available, what Treasury would want to do so, or the executive. But when we inscribe that in the Constitution, what we are saying is that no one can, transfer less than 35% to the counties. And that is very, very important for the survival of devolution. Right now, if the national government were to allocate 15%, you cannot take them to court. You cannot complain. If they were to allocate 20%, you would be saying, thank you very much. But when it is said the minimum must be 35%, they cannot allocate 33 or 34.5. It has to be 35%. And now, what is the other benefit about that? Therefore, it enables the citizen in the counties to be able to receive development. I give you a good example. In Laikipia, if that 35% was to be approved today, it would actually double the amount of money that Laikipia gets, which is another, say for argument's sake, an increase of about 4 billion. Now that would go into development. So what 4 billion can do in development, because the actual cost of running government is not going to change. So what you have is more money getting to the counties, and they are being able to do real, tangible and practical development that actually able to support the SMEs, support the agricultural sector, and support the health sector. Sure. And the other thing is that it enables to remove the pressure and the make or do or die competition for presidency. Because then you are saying, even if our people or our person is not the president of this republic, there's no problem, because we still have developed funds to be able to help ourselves. So in a way, we are trying to sort this do or die, high voltage competition for presidency, because then the resources more are going to the county. Right now, the reason why everybody says we must get into State House, our man or our person, is because then they will control, out of 2 trillion budget, they will control 85%. So that is what I see that, and unfortunately, I've had a discourse that saying, why can't this be a simple parliamentary amendment? Unfortunately, it is a constitutional issue. So we must go to amending the Constitution. And you have seen recently when we had a stalemate at the Senate in approving the County Allocation Revenue Act, the CALA, which was quite an unprecedented stalemate. And it's likely to recur. So we must solve this issue so that, in fact, right now, what the CRA is proposing for counties to use in making their budgets in next month, we are already disagreeing, because what they have actually done is that they have not added the 50 billion that was promised. What they have done is to try and rename and rearrange the grants to look like it's an additional resources. And we are saying, no, leave the grants alone. Let's deal with the equitable share that is coming from the revenues. And remember, the other thing that is also coming with the BBI that is very strong is that let us do allocation to counties on the basis of last audited financial accounts, meaning the last revenue that has been audited. Right now, we are doing allocation to counties on 5-year-old accounts.
Yes.
So you can imagine what was the revenue of this country 5 years ago. That is what is being used to. So those are the changes that we are saying they come to benefit devolution. There's also the word fund, by the way. which makes mandatory now for the counties, each ward to have a kitty for development, not for recurrent, for development. Meaning, therefore, the actual last unit of development of funds goes to the ward level, which then should go to the sub-location level. And these are the benefits. Of course, because of politics of our country, the whole benefits of BBI is being lost in that maze. But we do hope that with time we'll be able to explain and demonstrate so that the citizen can now embrace and say, in fact, this BBI has a good thing. The only thing that BBI looks like it is a bad thing is because the way our politicians are twisting and trying to change the narrative. It looks like BBI is Laila and Laila is BBI.
All right. So, Arthur Dera, even as I bring you into this discussion, Ward Development Fund, very important. We have the proposal of increasing counties' allocation from 15 to 35. DG has painted a very clear picture of the fruits that will come with this proposal, but he hasn't talked to the fact that there has been critique about the timeliness of the 15%. What about the 35%? What, do you think this will solve the stalemate we usually see in terms of timely revenue?
First of all, Jesse, the sad thing I find in this 35% argument is it has been so obscured by the political argument and the political passions that are accompanied by the players who have brought BBI to the table and the kind of mobilization process that they adopted initially and even some of the things they are doing now, which for me is very sad because the economic reality of having that increase from 15 to 35% can revolutionize the economy of this country. It can change the grassroots economic inclusivity, and that's what it is, economic inclusivity. Take your money to your county, take your money to your ward, plan your development, implement it based on your own priorities as you see them. Yeah. I mean, there's nothing that can be more empowering than that, both economically and politically. And like DG said, and I've said this thousands of times before, if you devolve 35% of national revenue to the counties and onward to the wards, it is less important who becomes president. Why? Because that 20% that has been remaining at the national level, in a lot of ways, has been money that sits somewhere in the ministry's budget or in agencies' budget, and people come to lobby, and usually the hand of the president of powerful people within government is what it takes to allocate that money to specific projects in specific counties, specific constituencies or wards. Now, let us remove that, so that we elect a president to lead, not so much to keep cutting pieces of the national cake the way he wants. We make it less important who becomes president. The do or die battle for the presidency becomes less important, and maybe that way it will become less passionate and more reasonable or more reasoned, the process of picking a president. We look for the leadership qualities of someone who can provide strategic leadership to the country, engage more and bring us to the fore in terms of the global economy, and in that way make it less acrimonious. Because we have our resources and we use them locally. And an argument was made here some time back that, you know, if you devolve 35%, you're taking the war from the national level to the county level. I mean, I haven't listened to a more cynical argument because at the county level, you elect a governor who is a local, usually. You bring your resources to the county level. People's representatives are there at the county level to approve government, to approve the budget and provide oversight. You then have to take some of those resources by law to the wards, and people there, if you have little wars going on, and they're usually little tussles, you know, because, you know, resources are things that everybody wants, and people negotiate for resources. Sometimes they tussle over resources. That's a normal thing, and they will be learning over time. We will get better and better at managing this over time.
All right. Well, it's all about resources, and it's all linked to that. DG, as we conclude on this particular discussion, the health issue, which is a devolved function, has definitely been a sore issue, especially since we are at unprecedented times with the COVID-19 pandemic. But still, we have the healthcare workers on strike. The Council of Governors has been very vocal on this. Yes, there's a CBA in place, but they do not have the money for this. It's not in the budget. What do you make of this? And going forward, what do you make of the goodwill factor between the national government, whether it's the Labour Ministry, but also including the counties on the negotiating table?
You know, the counties have no problem paying the health workers.
Yeah.
If only they had the funds. And I think we go back to the same question we're asking. Why is the Ministry of Health having a huge budget to do what? The ministries were left with only policy direction, so that there's a national policy about, say, for example, malaria, say, for example, about universal health care. So the rest of the money should just be sent to the counties. And therefore, then the counties will have no problem paying the doctors, paying the nurses. But you cannot call the union on one side, sit down with them, negotiate a CBA, excluding the issue of who pays for that CBA. Because I saw an argument that, look, we are being dishonest. The Council of Governors was represented. Yes, it was represented in as far as negotiating the terms is concerned. But when it comes to funds, the MOH must therefore say, look, our budget is 26 billion. We don't need 6 billion. Let it go to the county for purposes of meeting the CBA. But they're not doing so. So it becomes, in fact, I tend to think that instead of the unions blaming the Council of Governors, they should actually take it up with the Ministry of Health and say, look, you people are being dishonest because you're telling us, go to CoG, get your things sorted out, but then you're not sending the money to CoG. So can you first of all send the funds to CoG so that then the counties can be able to pay us? Otherwise, we cannot land the health sector without taking care of the health workers. We love them. We appreciate their work. They have really kept this country going. Nobody in their right mind would actually be able to say that I can't pay health workers. I don't like you. I mean, you must. That's not possible. Okay, so DG, is there any progress in terms of negotiations with the county? Perhaps you can speak for Laikipia County. Well, what we have done in Laikipia County, we have internally, in our own innovative way, tried to manage the health workers by telling them, you keep on giving the service. As we get more and more, so we'll continue dealing with your issues. They may not be dealt with all of them in one shot, but gradually, one after the other, we continue addressing their needs, promotions, allowances, so that we can be able to meet things like, welfare and having their health insurance. So these are things that, at account level, we are trying in our small way to be able to meet that gap. But the truth be told, it would be a yesterday discussion if only MOH would say, this is the money we are transferring back to the counties for purposes of this CBA, then we'll not have a problem. All right. Yeah. Okay. Arthur, as you speak onto the health issue facing the counties, I'd like us, as we conclude, the politics of development. I mean, it's a political year, and this might one way or the other boil down to the counties. We've seen Raila approach, actually move to approach governors in order to push for the BBI. So this is just a tip of the iceberg, if I may call it that, being the 25th day of this new year. In terms of politics and development in the counties, they have to go hand in hand, don't you think?
I think that development priorities should influence the politics, ideally. But politics is not just the political players, it is also the voters, remember. True. The voters have to put people who can represent their views and get what their priorities are delivered over time. So it's a chain of activities that end up giving us who we have and end up putting us where we are. However, in relation to the octane politics which we are seeing and we are going to see, remember we have a presidential transition by law. Uhuru Kenyatta cannot offer himself for president again, so he'll step aside and there'll be a new president come August 2022. Remember also that a good number of the governors are serving their second term and will be stepping out of the way by law. And that also is an area that is going to have high octane politics, and simply because of the immense amount of resources that these individuals control and the kind of influence they can have, positive or negative, we hope positive, they can have on the country and on the counties, on the lives of different people, it is a high-stakes game. It's a high-stakes game, except that for Kenya, the presidential campaign will probably cost us 4 years at least. If you take campaign to be the whole raft of activities that have been going on, and now BBI has caught up with us since early 2018, and everybody knows there's going to be a presidential transition, and there are many people who are angling for that position, and except that I think that sometimes, budgets are still being allocated.
Quite so.
Activities are still going on, but the media every single day catches our attention and drives us in the political direction. And I cannot fault media because, it follows the law of supply and demand. If this is what people want to consume, give them what you want to consume because media wants to sell.
Exactly.
And that's the thing, because sometimes great things that are happening in a time like this are obscured by political activities. You would think that politics is everything that's happening. But remember that things are still going on, except that because of the attention being focused in a different direction, a lot of people seize that opportunity to tinker with those monies that are allocated and direct them in a certain way, the way that they want. And I also think, based on what the DG said earlier, and the question you asked about if 15% is a problem, would 35% not be a bigger problem? I don't think so necessarily. It doesn't need to be. 15% is by law, minimum, given, budgeted for, and you just need to put in a mechanism, control of budget, CS in charge of treasury, that if you don't disperse to counties at this point in time, there will be these sanctions against you. That money will come from unlocking the monies that are locked in ministries doing God knows what. Right. That money will come from increased revenue.
Okay.
That money will come from the compulsion of law to give them money and to give them money in time. It doesn't need to be a problem.
Okay, so Author, many thanks for that. I'll give you each a minute in conclusion, just as we take a look at the journey so far. It's been a couple of years, truly challenging, bearing in mind we took devolution head on without trial and error and all that. John Mwaniki, your final thoughts on the journey so far, even as we anticipate high-octane politics that might push the development agenda in some counties to the back seat. What do you make of all this?
I think there's nothing wrong with the politics. We'll still do the politics because that's our way of life.
Yeah.
But I think this is a fantastic year for us because, truth be told, for us in devolution fraternity, we really want to push for BBI to go through in as far as the increased revenue allocation is concerned, the ward fund is concerned. And I think also that removes the spotlight from the presidency. And like we have said here this morning, that we don't need to focus a lot on the presidency to do or die if we can be able to devolve more resources. We are very keen to ensure that these agencies and parastatals that are duplicating county functions are done away with. And this is why we strongly support on the issue of making sure that these amendments to the Constitution are done. And we are asking the secretariat that is handling this to give us the bill quickly so that we can get out there and engage in the public participation, educate our masses so that they can understand what is in it for them. I think the other thing is that I can't forget to mention that it is time we embraced alternative financing.
All right.
And we should allow the counties to be able to raise debt. What my colleagues raised about an issue of whether the total whole in terms of public debt will be affected. Yes, it will. And we are arguing that even as Treasury has a ceiling, let them leave 15% to be for the county so that they don't borrow the entire ceiling.
All right.
Because net, we must also ensure that, and the way these debts will be serviced in the county is ensuring that as you do the equitable share, then you have a irrevocable repayment order where the CS Treasury deducts the amount due for servicing those debts at the allocation level so that then you don't have a default occurring.
Okay, DG. Yeah. Time's up. Let's cross over. Thawadera, your final take.
In terms of economic revival, we need government to to start the process to do a lot, actually decisive actions on reviving the economy. And I think one of the areas they need to touch and touch quickly is the small, micro and medium enterprises area, which will touch every part of the country. Remember, this sector contributes 40% of the Kenyan GDP. They employ, they are 7.4 million in total. I'm sure they employ many more people than that. They ensure the well-being of many people in this country, and it will reach every single part of Kenya to just make sure that that sector is working. Secondly, the counties, I hope that Parliament will pass the 35% law to ensure that counties get at least 35% of national revenue. It will ensure economic inclusivity. It will bolster devolution to be strong and be able to do more for the people of Kenya. And it will make it less important who becomes president. We should not kill each other or fight or even have an acrimonious election at all, because already resources will be devolved to the county. And I sure hope that soon we will hear something from the president about the vaccine for COVID-19.
Okay.
To tell us that it is free, to tell us that he has a plan for vaccination of Kenyans, and to tell us where we should go for our vaccine.
Well, definitely better times lie ahead. Many thanks, gentlemen. John Mwaniki right there, the Deputy Governor of Laikipia County, as well as Arthur Odera, former Member of Parliament, Teso North constituency. It was a manner, but I definitely appreciate your input. Let's take a short break right now. When we come back, still on Morning Express, the term fake news has been made quite popular, bearing in mind who the president was in the United States of America. When we come back on the newsroom, we debunk that. Do stay with us.
This is KTN News.